Prime-time local news, serving the Lakeland and Midwest regions.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. With protests taking place around the world for the Black Lives Matter movement, Lloydminster residents held their own rally outside City Hall last Friday to show their support for this cause. Jasmine King has more.
What's his name? George Floyd! What's his name? George Floyd!
The rally took place Friday afternoon, where residents showed their support with signs, and they even saw support from the Lloydminster RCMP, where they joined in by kneeling with the rest of the crowd. They were surprised to see the amount of people who joined the rally.
I've grown up here my entire life. I am mixed, so there wasn't always a lot of people that look like me or my family here, and to come out to this today is overwhelmingly exciting because I've never seen support quite like this.
Protesters wanted their voice to be heard, especially for those who may not be able to protest.
I came out because for people to realize that, to stop racism, one of the biggest things in North America is racism, and I'm here to be a voice for some people that can't be.
With the protests currently going on in the U.S., the Black Lives Matter movement has gained a lot of traction on social media, which is one of the reasons some people came out to the rally.
I feel really passionate about this. I've been posting about it all over social media, and I just felt like if I'm talking the talk, I need to walk the walk. You know, I felt like Lloyd is such a small community, but if you can come out here and make a difference, then it's so important, you know. And if even if you change one person's mind, then it's just like it's worth it.
While they mainly focused on the Black Lives Matter movement, there was also some people rallying for other causes, such as the treatment of Indigenous people in Canada.
We keep talking about it because there needs to be a change in the systematic racism that still is happening, and it's happening in Canada, and it's not just Black people, it's all people of color. We have Indigenous people that are still being targeted as oppression. It's something that we need to keep talking about. We can't just protest one day and forget about it the next day. It's something we need to keep talking about until there is a change in the system.
Jasmine King, Primetime Local News.
June is Pride Month, and this year things will be different due to restrictions on large gatherings. Jace Mackey spoke with the founder of the LGBTQ Society of Lloydminster to find out what events are planned this year.
All right, so I'm joined today with Tiffany Wiesner. She is the founder of the LGBTQ Society of Lloydminster, and thanks for taking some time to talk with me today.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
So we're going to be talking a little bit about Pride Month and kind of things that the LGBTQ Society has planned for this month. Can you just talk to me first about maybe a little bit about what the importance of Pride Month is?
It's about celebrating past and present LGBT members and allies. We definitely want to build a bigger community here in town. There's definitely a need for it, which is why I started the group. We're trying to get ourselves out there, reach the community. We've definitely seen a lot more outreach from people outside the community, finally realizing we're here. So I think it's important that just getting that recognition that we are here and building our group and just showing everybody that we're here and we're proud.
And when it comes to the things you guys have planned this year, what do you have in the works?
So we've decided to go ultimately virtual as much as we can. We've got a lot of things just going to be online, whether it's going to be some art tutorials, just daily story time readings. There's going to be some daily drag episodes. We're going to have a week-long scavenger hunt, which is all going to be no contact. People are going to be given the clues and are just going to be expected to drive around, kind of find the locations, take pictures of them without having to go into the businesses. We've got a coloring contest for kids. We're going to have a Netflix watch party. There's going to be a virtual dance party, and then we're hoping to wind up the week celebrating and participating in the global pride that's going to be happening.
And this year you've had to make obviously some changes and move things mostly virtual or totally virtual. How difficult was it for you guys to have to make that switch and kind of plan things different than what you were used to?
Well, I mean, it actually came pretty easy. Making the decision, obviously, to forego Pride was not going to be a possibility. We definitely wanted to make sure that we still did something. So with the technology that's out there, it was pretty easy to just say, hey, let's go virtual. And surprisingly enough, we found tons of great ideas. We've got a great events committee that has come up with a lot of stuff. And I'm hoping that given that it's going to be virtual and all no contact, that we might see a lot more people turn out or participate, maybe people that haven't been able to in the past or have been afraid to. So we're hoping to reach our past attendees, and then also maybe reach a whole new level of crowd.
And for someone who might want to learn more just about the society in general or participate in some of these events, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So we do have 2 groups on Facebook. We have a private group for people that want to request to join. And then we also have a public events page, and it's just LGBTQ Society of Lloydminster-events. And anybody can go on there and see what we've got going on. There will be links to everything. And we will have a finalized calendar posted for anybody who wants to know what's happening and when.
Perfect. Also, there's a scavenger hunt that you guys are doing, and people are going from business to business. Is that how it's going to work? There's going to be like stickers at each business?
Yes. So we've come up with just a little pride decal, and for all the businesses that are going to participate, they're just asked to post that in their window or their door, so that people, with given the clues, can find them, drive around, not actually go into the businesses, but just find them, take a picture that they found them, and then just send us a list of what they've been able to find, and then we'll hopefully have some prizes for maybe the first person to complete the whole list if they do, or maybe just a random draw if we have multiple people, finding all of the decals.
Perfect. Thanks for talking with me today and taking some time out of your busy schedule, and I wish you the best of luck with all the events you guys have planned this month.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
This week in retrospect, back in 1995, Canadian journalists trained for war correspondents at Camp Wainwright.
We're journalists from Canada. We spent the night at the observation post, and now we are moving back to our car.
17 Canadian journalists were learning how to prepare themselves in case they ever have to work in a war-torn country. Camp Wainwright held a war correspondence course dealing with a variety of wartime scenarios.
My body's numb. I got the shivers and I'm cold.
We've gone through mine recognition, checkpoint negotiations, the chemical, biological, nuclear attack threat, and first aid, which is also really good, how to do shrapnel wounds and splinters and just emergency field dressings.
The week-long course is the first of its kind in Canada for English-speaking journalists. Jennifer Westaway has worked in a number of different conflict zones and has witnessed firsthand the dangers journalists can experience.
A shell landed on the Muslim side, and that Italian TV crew never made it out. And what stuck with me out of that is in all the preparations that you can take, and how careful you want to be, your flak vest, your helmet, all of those things. You can have an unlucky day. And you got to think about that before you go out there, and whether the story that you're going for is really worth getting.
And in 2000, local thespians and performers contribute their talents to the 5th annual local Fringe Festival.
What began as a Scottish festival back in 1947 has evolved into a popular summertime event. Here in the border city, the Fringe Festival is preparing to make a comeback for its 5th year, and they've made a few changes.
Very, very family friendly. We've got a children's stage for the first time this year, which is really exciting. We're hoping to attract some musicians, clowns, jugglers, that sort of thing.
Last year, the Fringe was held at Lakeland College, but because of its edgy content, exploring themes of a sexual and violent nature, it has since been toned down and will not be held at the college this year.
It's difficult for me to discuss that just because I've only been on board with the Fringe Festival. My position only started a month ago, so I missed probably a lot of the politics going on with that. But I think it was a great facility for us last year, but I'm just as excited about Weaver Park this summer. I think there is an audience out there for some of the more cutting-edge material. But I think families are an important thing. What the Fringe is a celebration of culture and of community. So that's a very important aspect that we'd like to bring into it.
And that's it for this week in retrospect.
Furniture set and design supplied by Furniture Gallery and Furniture House, downtown Lloydminster.
Well, tattoo shops are part of that Phase 3 reopening plan, which opened up today. But of course, Dark Hour Inc. is very close to opening up, which will be tomorrow. But I'm joined with Desiree Wild, the owner of Dark Hour Inc. here in Lloydminster. Desiree, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Let's talk a little bit about what the general feeling was like on your guys' end when you had to close for that duration.
It was a very desperate feeling. We are all self-employed here, and it was out of our control. So we shut our doors, and then we kind of just went with the flow of things.
What are some of the new safety measures now that are in place, and also for when you guys do reopen?
We have plexiglass that's now hung in front of our customer service desk. We do not want anybody coming in that doesn't have an appointment. We would appreciate a phone call prior to coming in. If you have an appointment booked, we do ask that you come by yourself. And if you have a mask, especially a reusable one, please make sure it is washed the night before. If you do not have a mask, we will provide a tie-on mask for customers to wear. Upon entering, we do have totes that are sterilized the morning we come in. They can put their shoes and their jacket and any sort of personal items into the tote. The tote will then be sterilized, and it will be put closer to the back of the building just so nobody worries about their stuff being taken. We have all of our chairs separated. We are not allowing anybody to sit on our material made couch just because it is not wipeable. And we have each of our artists are in their own room, so they are only allowed to have their customer in there and no other body.
Now, has the staff been trained to follow those extra measures? Has there been extra training for them prior to this?
Yeah, everybody we've asked as a shop, it wasn't health standards. We've asked all of our artists, and even I have redone our bloodborne pathogens. And then I know Madeline has done some of the courses for the COVID and the PPE, which we're all of us are trying to get accomplished as well. So we will have documents up. Everybody does have their bloodborne, and we're still all working on our other two ones, and the documents will be put up in plain view.
Has there been now a demand for appointments now since you guys are on the verge of reopening? And of course I say verge because you're telling me you aren't open today. You are open tomorrow though, correct?
Well, yes. And my phone has been lit up. Actually, I've been here at work for the last 2 weeks. Tuesday to Saturday, 10 to 3. I've been calling and rescheduling. We have hundreds of appointments that we need to get booked in before we can get new appointments in the schedule. I'm really glad to announce that as of today, Madeline and Kat, I can get a new appointments in booked for them. But unfortunately with Scott, he is booking into the new year. So I do have a lot of more customers to get in with him before he can take new customers. My phone lit up at 4:30 this morning and it hasn't stopped.
That's awesome to hear. And has it been overwhelming in a sense, getting all those clients back and getting even potential new ones?
Yes. And there was a lot of worry with the COVID hitting of people booking appointments, being able to budget, having the appointment in. And of course, like everybody else, we've always through this felt we were essential because this is a form of therapy for some people. And especially with the struggles and the mental struggles that have been going on with COVID, we definitely want to help get people back in here just for that release. It does sound kind of odd, but being in this industry, it's definitely a form of therapy for people. So we'll be getting everybody in as soon as we can. So we appreciate the patience. We appreciate the phone calls, and people keep calling. Please don't give up on us because we're going to get everybody in as soon as we possibly can.
Well, Desiree, I really appreciate your time sharing all the great things that are happening at Dark Hour. It's great to see that many people are still getting a hold of you and are wanting to book appointments. And it's just great to see that local businesses like yourself are continuing to do well despite these tough times. So thank you.
Well, and if I can just say, we really use this opportunity to reflect on the industry And so we are launching a new website, and we're going to be open longer. We're going to be open Tuesday to Friday in the evenings now, just to help accommodate, and going forward, just to give more people the opportunity to get tattooed or pierced.
That's awesome. Desiree, thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much. You guys have a wonderful day.
Three of the four major sports could see a return to action in the coming weeks. Our Evan Kenny and Eric Bay break down the latest from the NHL, MLB, and the NBA.
Joining me today to talk about some potential sports coming back to the world is Eric Bay. Eric, thanks for joining me.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, Eric, three of the four major sports could be seeing a return sooner than later. Obviously, we've talked quite a bit about the NHL over the last couple months, and there's been new developments, especially when we get to the nitty-gritty details of the NHL playoffs. Why don't you just break that down for us?
Yeah, so a couple, I guess, of those bigger concerns or details that they did want to break down there have now come to light, including the fact that they will be reseeding those teams that make it through the qualifying rounds and continue to reseed throughout the entire playoffs. So what that means is if, say, Montreal, as we've been using for an example here, the number 12 team does beat Pittsburgh, they will be facing Boston if Boston continues to hold that number 1 spot in the next round, and so on and so forth throughout the entire round. So basically the best team left will be facing the worst seeded team left throughout. And as well, they have decided on the length of the round. So all the normal playoff rounds will continue to be 7 games. Meanwhile, that qualifying round between the teams that were kind of on the outside looking in will only be 5 games, a best-of-5 series. So again, just some details hammering out, and we're still a long ways off, but it's good to have these answers here now.
For sure. What are your first thoughts when it comes to the number of games that teams will be playing, plus the little break that they'll have between the end of this season and the start of next year?
Yeah, well, that's the big thing, right? Is obviously this is going to take a long time. The NHL playoffs, as it is, already last about 2 months, roughly, give or take, and that's only with those 4 playoff rounds of 7. So now you're going to throw in the best-of-5 into the mix. And honestly, for me, I'd say it's still a little bit too long. Obviously, we are trying to get things back in order, and obviously this is still going to affect even next season. But I even think that you could go that first round, maybe first 2 rounds of the actual playoffs as a best-of-5, just to kind of drop that, because we could see some of these teams playing the qualifying round, and if they do make the Stanley Cup playoffs, that's a possibility of an extra 33 games, and then on top of that, you are obviously going to have to take that break between the seasons. So really this will run us into somewhere in October, close to November maybe, depending, and then you're going to need probably 2 months of an off season for these guys playing in the Stanley Cup, get back in shape, rest, recuperate. So that could push the next season into late December, early January. So for me, I know obviously teams are going to want those 7 games, and it's the way it's been done, but you almost have to cut it down a bit and obviously look at the future here when it comes to this.
And I agree with you when it comes to 7 games might be a little too much. When it comes to the Stanley Cup or even East-Western Conference Finals, I'm totally fine with the 7 games. But for these first maybe 2 or so series, 5 games would be acceptable in my opinion. Especially getting 16 wins throughout playoffs. That takes 2 months or so for a team. So to try and get 19 wins now throughout the playoffs just adds that extra amount of time there. Another league that we could see coming back, but is a little further away, is the MLB. Now, Eric, there's some, even the latest reports have come out from the MLB today. Coming from the owner's perspective, why don't you break that down for us?
Yeah, obviously the MLB has been kind of disappointing just based on the fact that they theoretically could be the first league back, yet they haven't been able to agree on anything. And as we've mentioned, they've been going back and forth. And as you said today, the latest is that the MLB teams have now proposed a 76-game season, which would include 16 teams in the playoffs. So that's quite the expansion compared to what baseball usually has, as they have the fewest teams in the playoffs. But again, don't get your hopes up, baseball fans, because it sounds like, as it has been with all the past issues here, money is going to be an issue, and specifically the amount of salaries that is relied upon for the playoff bonuses, that sort of structure. It's going to be interesting. This deal did have the players getting more of their salaries back compared to past ones where they'd only be getting, say, a third or not even their prorated salaries at all. So again, it's all about how that money comes in, and that's really been the sticking point from both perspectives, and it's going to continue to be here until we finally see something happen, and we don't know when that will be.
Yeah, and the MLB, it seems like the owners and the MLBPA hasn't really been on the same page. However, there has been a league that the Players Association and the owners are clicking quite well, and that's the NBA. The NBA has proposed a 22-team, I guess you could call it play-in to the playoffs, and it seems to be the most well-working, the most oiled machine thus far from the major sports. Eric, what do you like from the NBA versus from, say, the NHL?
Well, I do like the fact that they do have kind of that play-in bid. It's almost like a preseason for those teams that are already in the mix of things. They're obviously going to have those play-ins for the last spots. But again, really, when you look at it, I do think they have a good plan in place. It does kind of follow the NHL. But I do like the fact that they did have that cap at kind of those teams, within 6 games of the last playoff spot. So they have 13 teams in the West and 9 teams in the East. So I do like that over the NHL's aspect because really, again, any one of these teams did have a chance, should have a chance. So I really do like that aspect of it. But again, you mentioned they are obviously running fairly well, all those teams going down to Orlando. And it seems like a good practice. So again, I guess the one concern I do have, you could call it that, is the fact they are doing so many games for that play-in. And so it will take until, mid-October before everything is all said and done with them as well. So again, it's all about length, getting those games in. But I mean, what can you do, right? And we've talked before, better them than us making these decisions because they are tough. But it does sound like these leagues do have some good options in place here.
And the NBA is hoping that Game 7 of the finals would take place on October 12th. So that is getting a little later in the year. Eric, it's always a pleasure having you on. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Evan.
Welcome back. Take a look at the 7-day forecast here. 17 degrees for Tuesday with some cloud coverage. We'll see that cloud coverage continuing to Wednesday and Thursday. 20 degrees, on Wednesday. 55% chance of some showers. 19 on Thursday. 23 on Friday. We should have a much nicer and warmer weekend compared to last weekend with a 25 high on Saturday and a 22 high on Sunday, all with a 25% chance that we could see some showers and a 21 degree daytime high for on Monday.